Hi, and welcome back to our virtual roundtable brought to you by iCON Manufacturing, IPS, and Asgard Cleanroom Solutions. This is part two of a part two series, The Champions of iCON, a collaborative discussion on global turnkey solutions. If you have not watched part one, I do encourage you to do so and then come back and watch part two. So once again, I'm here with Dennis Powers, Jimmy Blaney, and Tom Piombino. And we are going to kick it off with another question. So, again, the questions are answered by anyone on the panel. Just whoever can answer, go and do so. And first question I have for you: have you ever used iCON outside the United States? And what are the current and future global capabilities?
That's a positive. Yes. So we have we executed a viral vector project in Germany, and a pretty successful project. And it was all constructed at Jimmy's Fine Factory in Kilkenny. And so, yeah, no, we've launched it. It's been in existence and active for quite some time.
I think the other thing is we're developing project designs just right now at the moment, involved in feasibility studies and concept designs across UK, Belgium, Finland, Germany, Switzerland, and the United Emirates. So, we are getting extremely busy. The demand is definitely there from a European perspective.
Yeah, and our plan is to continue to invest in resources and increase our presence in the European marketplace. So we're going to build upon the projects that we've executed to date. We've got a long list, a long pipeline of opportunities we're working on, as Jimmy had indicated, and the goal is to, at some point in the near future, have pod manufacturing capability somewhere in the Asia Pacific region as well, which will lend itself to expanding that iCON footprint globally.
But I think there's it's crucial for us to say there's a wider iCON team in the European market via our IPS colleagues, our GCON colleagues. So it's well worth mentioning the other guys that are working promoting the iCON brand across Europe, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do know it's been a huge benefit of building a GCON team out in the UK, having a face and a footprint out there, and showing our capabilities beyond the US.
No, totally agree, and we managed to convince Martin Birch to join the team from a GCON perspective, but equally from an IPS perspective, there's a lot of talented subject matter experts joining that team, which is growing that expertise exponentially across Europe, and the iCON offering is becoming a lot more attractive because of that.
Yeah, no, it's helped us a great deal as well. We we have offices throughout the EU, so it's been great to have an innovative product that we could offer the market, in addition to just sort of our traditional ways of thinking. So it's been great.
Yeah, and what's great is we can get an opportunity or an inquiry from anywhere in the world right now, and we can respond to it with the iCON team because of the footprint the three organizations have together.
Yeah, I totally agree. We are the definition of a global company right now with our offerings and solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And several years ago, I think even when people would see the benefit of a turnkey facility and not having the capabilities in Europe, that was the holdup. So when you're talking about timeline and speed, yes, that worked well in the US, but we need it to work well across the globe. So, that said, what is the quickest timeline you've achieved for a client whose, speed to market was the ultimate deciding factor? And how do you balance speed with compliance?
That's good.
You have compliance in the U.S. and in the European market to consider as well.
Yeah, I'll just start there. We had a customer who really was all in They completely trusted the process, and we were able to from the point of purchase order to the point of delivery of the first modules, pods, we're talking 4 months. That was like lightning speed. And I think what facilitated that was their trust. We had a product that we were able to offer them that was off the shelf in a sense. And they needed to make some minor changes, but all in all, they trusted that the product that we offered for the modality that they needed it for would work, and it did. So, pod 1 delivered month 4, pods 2, 3, 4, 5 delivered month 7, 8, and that enabled them to get their clinical supply to the market, super fast, which was really kind of gratifying for all 3 of us. So, that was the fastest, I would say, to date, Dennis, unless you guys have.
Yeah, that was the fastest. And as you said, when a client comes back and tells us that they were able to treat patients, faster than they've ever been able to do before. That's really what inspires us and motivates us to continue to do what we do. And I would say, to kind of answer the second part of your question, when it comes to speed and compliance, for us, we are, there's no question about quality or compliance. That's a must-have. So, that will never be sacrificed to be faster. And that's really, that's a big part of the iCON approach, is that you're building the quality and the compliance into the platform design. So you're ensuring that you'll never sacrifice quality or compliance in order to meet a project schedule. In fact, the way we execute projects, the way we prefabricate, in our factories, it's such a well-controlled environment with the checks and balances in place that we believe we're actually providing a higher quality product than what you would get if you were going to go a traditional construction route.
I'm going to use one of your phrases, Dennis. I'm a global citizen, and I think under the current circumstances with COVID-19 and the very nature of most of the fast-track projects that we're capable of taking on, I think the shortest project we've ever done is going to be beaten right now over the next number of months because of the very nature of what we're trying to achieve to help resolve this pandemic. And I think it's all credit to all of our project teams. And I know within GCON down in College Station, the operations team, the project management teams, they're working tirelessly to look at, the quickest way to reduce time, even more so now, based on what we're trying to achieve. And again, it's testament to their expertise and their ability to look at these projects in a meaningful way for the best outcome for our patients.
I think one of the cool factors around iCON is that we can engage a customer and say it's week 1, okay, and they've just bought some conceptual services to sort of understand what we can do for them, and we can actually get together as a team and assess whether we can do it. And I think that's so different than traditional, right? Because you would spend a couple months, designing every bolt and trying to get everybody to think one way, and then you go out to the market and 15 different companies would come back with their own schedules, and you'd have to assess and align those schedules. So we can do that much sooner, because
Tom, the Flex designs that you guys have developed, I mean, again, a lot of them are suitable for today's requirements. How much time does that take off a project, assuming that there's very little customization happening to those platform designs?
Yeah. So, the Cell-Flex, which we've used on a couple projects to date, it's really, we have a period of time that we call, just aligning the user requirements. It's not really quote unquote design because it's already pre-engineered. So, that could be done in weeks. We could be fabricating within a month of receiving or really even starting a relationship with a customer. So, when they realize that exists, it really is, it's like this light bulb goes on, like, okay, I'll take 10, it hasn't happened quite that way, right? But the potential is there. And that's the whole point, right? We're really trying to look at where the market wants to be in 5 years, with rolling these things off the assembly line in a sense, and saying, we're the first ones that are going to be there. So, it really is quite exciting.
Yeah, and Tom, I think you hit on a great point before, and I think we've seen this definitely over the past few months with the whole COVID-19 situation. But we can get an inquiry in, and within hours of that inquiry, we can have a team, right, an iCON team together on a web meeting, and already working through the best way to respond to this opportunity, and like you said, going through the checklist, can we do this, can we do it in the time frame? And I think that's really what makes us so much different than anything else out there in the industry, is our ability to respond rapidly, with a team that already has existing relationships, an existing library of designs, and the willingness and the shared vision to to be more responsive than anyone else has ever been.
Yep. Great. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
Well,
I think all three of you have touched on what we're dealing with right now. We're talking about the pandemic and COVID. The three of you just mentioned that, and I think what this whole situation has taught us during this pandemic is there's so many things that are out of our control, like in our personal lives and on the business, in our business lives, and we're so used to having control. And on the business side, we try to control as much as we can, but now with this pandemic, there are things that as much as GCON or Asgard or IPS can do, there's things such as labor and materials that if they're unavailable, they're just not available. So have you witnessed any impact on labor or materials availability since the ramp up of the pandemic?
From a manufacturing point of view, I think we've worked very closely, and again, Dennis, you can speak for College Station, but we've worked very, very closely with our supply chain and our supply chain management to ensure that we had the right stock levels to respond proactively. And I think that was very important at the outset of understanding that potentially COVID-19 could turn into a pandemic, and planning properly really does, or really has paid dividends in the fact that we haven't had an issue with supply chain, thankfully.
Yeah, and it's been the same throughout the entire GCON organization. And as Jimmy said, we've monitored our supply chain very closely from the very start of the pandemic situation. And we have a long list of suppliers that we use, and they're pre-qualified suppliers because, again, we're building our pods and we're building our iCON facilities as a product. So we're not going out and bidding every component or every piece of equipment for a project every time. So we've got very good supplier relationships. We've been managing them. Now, has COVID impacted projects? Absolutely, because it's, there's been a lot of delays and issues on the construction sites. So that's where we've probably seen the biggest impact. But we've been able to maintain our schedules and our supply chain for our part of the project.
Yeah.
I actually think COVID has really strengthened the relationships that we have with our supply chain in a sense. If you think about the logic behind what has happened, if we had projects that were considered essential, we actually pulled our suppliers into essential. So they might have been sitting there saying, we're doing office buildings and road whatever, and they were not essential. We, as folks who needed, their services and products, were able to pull them into that category. So You know, when we look forward, you know, we really cemented a lot of relationships that were more transactional long term.
Yeah, and I think from Dennis, you picked up on a great point. I mean, the systematic way of having to work on sites has changed. And I think, is that a good thing? Potentially, yes, because the efficiencies have now been found, which actually allows us to look at the overall operational manufacturing functionality of what we're doing, and really that's now starting to pay dividends as well. You know, it's an unfortunate situation with COVID-19, but the reality is we've realised those efficiencies now and a better way of working on site.
Absolutely. And with all of this, how do you believe the COVID-19 situation has changed the industry's view on prefabricated modular construction?
Yeah, I would certainly say that it's, if nothing else, it's reinforced the need for this type of approach. And I think it's for those companies who, you know, have been considering, you know, prefabricated modular, have been considering in the integrated project delivery. I think now more than ever, they are going to seriously consider this on all future projects. I don't think you can afford not to.
And I don't think it's specific to our industry either. I think
Yeah.
the idea of offsite construction's been growing in popularity for years. If you start to dial into some of the industry construction roundtables and things like that, you know, they've been preaching the merits of it for many years across many different industries, hospital industry, you know, certainly pharma and others. So yeah, I think that if people were able to dabble in it during this COVID-19 response, I think that they're going to be sold for, you know, for the future. I think that's what we're seeing anyway.
I totally agree with both of you.
Yeah. One question that actually comes directly from an external, I guess, someone who's looking into using iCON. You know, they asked, you know, if I were to use iCON, how do I ensure that everything gets competitively bid at the equipment and subcontractor level?
Yeah, that's a good one. You know,
it goes back to that trust and transparency thing.
It does. It's a partnered approach, and you know, that comes with the formula. And so, you know, we certainly do competitively bid in a full project where you've got a building and you've got, you know, utility systems and all those things. We certainly bid cost and schedule, because those are key components to delivering on time. So, you know, we may go to our, you know, somebody that we use day in and day out. They're, you know, non-exclusive, and they might say, I can't do it, so we're going to go to option B. But this team that you see on this panel, we're partners in iCON, and you know, we've got agreements between the three organizations that make us competitive, and those things they've been done, you know, so we could offer the market a competitive product, and so we've done that work.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to benchmark our costings, and I think we've been very mindful from an order of magnitude costing for the deliverable of an iCON project. So therefore, you know, a client with experience will actually realize that by seeing those costs come through. So therefore, Tom, I totally agree. You know, it's all about market value, and we have done that exercise, and we will carry on benchmarking our costs as we move forward. It's just something we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reality of the situation is if you were to go out and competitively bid every element of a project, you're going to add a significant amount of time to the project timeline. So what we do is we offset that with going out and, again, building relationships, pre-qualifying suppliers. So for a lot of the components and equipment that we're buying, you know, at least specifically for the pods, you know, we're buying in quantity, right? So we're not going out to a different supplier every time. We're going back to the same suppliers. You know, we work to get competitive pricing, and we work to ensure inventory levels, and we work to ensure deliveries, so we can provide the best total lowest cost or total value solution to our clients.
Yeah, and you're right. This isn't a traditional approach by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that question really aims or takes away from the fact that we are more of a collaborative, integrated team approach, or we embrace that anyway, and therefore a traditional approach will actually add days, weeks, months onto a program if we have to go out to tender. I totally agree with that, Dennis.
Yep, it's a product.
Well,
It's a product.
if I'm a customer and I'm considering to use iCON, however, I have design firms that, I'm comfortable with working with. I come to you and I want to ask you, can I utilize my preferred, site construction and design firms on an iCON project?
Absolutely not. Yeah, for sure. It comes up every day. Again, transparency and trust is key between our three organizations because, it's the reality, and that's fine. I mean, if it can help the project get done faster, we're certainly open to talking about it and embracing, folks that are truly in this to be collaborative. That's the key. When you bring in new organizations, is the trust factor there? But certainly we're open to it.
There is other specialist subcontractors that you would bring in as part of a nominated or novated package, and that's probably more, Tom, life safety, for example, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Process equipment vendors, potentially, and utilities, clean and dirty. So they may have a specific supplier that we would, again, bring in as part of the iCON collaborative integrated approach, but they would have to come in as part of that team, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
What percentage of a typical iCON project can you expect to be offsite construction?
Yeah, it's a great question. The pods themselves, they tend to be range anywhere for, like, looking at let's say a greenfield project. They range from anywhere between 30 to 40% of the overall installed cost. So it's lower than you'd think. But so that's a percentage, right? And then we do our best to create an assembly environment at the job site as opposed to stick building everything. So we want to test everything in the factory and assemble it on site. So the same philosophy that we take to the pods, we want to take to utility skids, creating super skids, using vendors who can integrate all those things there in their factory, make sure it works before it leaves. Create an environment where the owner can actually go visit it while it's being built, and then at the end of the day, commission it, potentially IQ, OQ it, and then ship it to the job site. So, we would love to see projects being 60-65% offsite constructed if we could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's that's kind of a target, but depending on the client, depending on the location, there may be certain locations where they may not have the CGMP facility construction experience that you may need for a project. So you may go a little more prefabricated offsite construction. So, but I think, like Tom said, that it's kind of that 60-40 target, probably a good average for us, and then we evaluate every project on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. We've certainly had projects where we were just doing the fit out. So the owner already had a building, maybe already had a cup, and it was a much larger percentage was offsite because we were only doing the interior environment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to challenge the three of you to open your mind a little bit. No bias here, okay?
Of course.
Do you think that there's a better therapeutic modality that fits better?
I would certainly say that prior to the COVID-19 situation, I think certainly the cell and gene therapy space is one area where we've been seeing a lot of opportunities, and I think the industry has seen a lot of value in the iCON approach. And I think now, Yeah, and we're continuing to see that. And we know that the cell and gene therapy space is going to continue to grow based on the clinical pipeline that we have right now. But I think now with the COVID situation, I think, that's kind of opened up the industry's eyes to, how this type of approach, can be applied to supply, vaccines globally and more rapidly respond to these types of situations, because, the reality is, this will not be the last pandemic that we encounter. So we have to be ready as an industry to respond.
Yeah. So you're feeling that, the cell and gene therapy is one that does fit the iCON platform a little better than others at this moment. And I think, in the industry you have, it depends on what's needed at the time, right? So
really, it's, yeah.
I find it hard to believe that there's so many countries with a lack of vaccine manufacturing capabilities, and the very fact that our iCON platform fits that beautifully with fast track projects. For me, vaccine manufacturing has to be the answer to that from what I'm seeing just right now at the moment in Europe.
Yeah, I would say, because IPS does projects across the spectrum. We've scaled up this platform sufficiently. And I think when customers realize that we can do, 16-foot interior height, pods, they just can't wrap their head around it. How would I ship that? How would I build that? Well, you don't have to, because we're going to do it. And we've scaled up the platform to be able to accommodate tall processes, 2K scale bioreactors in the mAb space and the gene therapy space. So, that's part of our business proposition, and the value we bring is we've adapted this technology to much bigger applications. There's certainly things that would be a challenge for us, processes that are like traditional API processes that are, use a lot of flammable materials and things like that, just take more time. It's not that it's not doable, it just takes more time to adapt the platform to be able to be, explosion proof and, source materials that have those designations. But anything in the biologics space is obvious. It's a given, and that would include vaccines. We've obviously done a collective project in the OSD space for continuous manufacturing, which was wildly successful and continues to, create more investment by the company that bought it. Yeah. But yeah, we're open, and yeah. That's what entrepreneurs do, right?
Absolutely. Well, I definitely think this has been a much needed conversation for many reasons. One, it gives the transparency to answer a lot of the questions that have been out there in the industry about iCON. I think everyone knows essentially what it is and the collaboration, but there's been a lot of questions behind it, and just grateful to have the three of you come together and answer the questions truthfully. And we do welcome any other questions if you're out there and you want to know more about iCON. We will provide you with a link where you can send an email to us because we know there are other questions out there and we're glad to answer them. I thank you, Dennis, Jimmy, and Tom for answering these questions truthfully and just being here from literally all across the world. We have Jimmy in Ireland. Tom, I believe you're in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And Dennis in New York, and I'm here in California. And again, with everything going on right now, we're just using this opportunity to bring you all the best information in the most efficient way possible. So again, thank you all for joining us. And again, if you have not watched part 1 of this 2-part series, I do encourage you to go back and watch. And have a great week. Everyone stay safe. And thanks again.
Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks, Brittany.